Let's begin. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. As I'm bringing us in, let's do our connecting with each other. Just take a look at every woman who's here. Look at her photo, send her a hello, some blessings, whatever you got going on. But take some time to just look at each other. If you don't have your camera on and you don't want to put it on, that is fine. But if you are interested in connecting in this way, it really does help bring us a little bit closer together when we're virtual. Uh, you'll notice the tone in the invitation that we're gathering today at a time when our voices are needed more than ever, sisters, not only for ourselves, for those who cannot safely speak. And we're here as I was thinking about how to frame it, and I was like, we are a living refusal to shrink. We are a reminder that our stories and our truths and our presence matter. And so I see today's circle as a combination of a rally and a refuge, a place where we can come together and breathe and be seen and remember that we are not alone in the work of showing up. Again, showing up for ourselves, showing up for others, and showing up for the world, right? We are here to speak for ourselves. We are here to speak for others. We are here to speak for the women who came before us, right? I read this beautiful post or a comment on my post yesterday from a woman named Portia, who's like, she's been married to her wife for decades. They've been together for decades more. You know, they're in their 70s and they're looking at each other saying, did we not do enough? And it was so heartbreaking because they did enough. It's not about that. So that us coming together and saying, oh, like we know that now is the time to raise our voices for those women too. And also for all of the women coming up after us who are living in a state of being stunned, like that they're having to fight for things that their grandma didn't, that their mom didn't. And so, as usual, I'm going to invite us to begin with a mantra. And today I want to say it a little differently. I want to say it 3 times and I want to say it 3 different ways. So I want to start by saying it softly, and then I want us to say it clearly, and then I want us to say it boldly. Okay? So the mantra, I'm going to put it here in the chat. We're going to say it softly first. So my voice
My voice
is my
is my
birthright.
birthright.
My
My
presence
presence
is my
is my
power.
power.
Yes. Now we're going to say it clearly. So my voice
Voice,
is my
my
birthright.
birthright.
My
My
presence is
presence
my
is
power.
my power.
Yes. And now we're going to say it boldly. My
My
voice
voice
is my
is my
birthright.
birthright.
My
My
presence
presence
is my
is my
power.
power.
Mm. Oh, that feels so good. Thank you for joining me. That feels so good. Let's charge our voices for the world today. Let's do some breathing together. Let's find a nice tall spine and just put your shoulders, roll your shoulders back, release your jaw. If it's at all like mine, it's like in a constant state of clenching. I'm sure my dentist is going to have some really choice words for me. And then we're going to inhale deeply through our nose and we're going to exhale with a gentle hum. And when I say gentle hum, what I'm talking about is I want you to feel the vibration in your lips and in your throat. Okay, so we're going to breathe in through our nose and then exhale with that gentle hum.
Mm.
Yes. This next one on when you inhale the same and then exhale with an ah. Okay, so inhale.
Ah.
Ah. Yes, so good. And then with each breath, I want us to take up a little bit more space with our sound, right? If you are somebody who loves to like get really low and tribal with your tones, go low. If you are a screamer, scream. If you want to get high and sing, whatever, but let your body release whatever sound needs to be released right now. And if you are going to scream, you might want to turn your audio off for a second. That's fine. But this idea to breathe in and then just let out that sound, go for it. Ready? So breathe in through your nose and then out. Ah. Let it out. Let the sound out. Roar, scream, howl, whatever you need. And keep doing that today. Keep, as you're breathing, let a sound out to warm up your voice. Let it be one long resonant sound every time you exhale. And I want you to imagine that all of us, wherever we are, whether we're in Vegas or Portland or Sonoma or LA, wherever we are, that our voices are traveling beyond where we are, that our voices are threads going across and connecting us. And there we're carrying that strength to those of us who need it most, whether it's what Michelle is going through, wrapping her in our voice and our strength as she's walking through what she's walking through, or if it's those of us who are here today whose love is being challenged. um, let's see that, let's feel it in our voices, because self-expression and power of our breath is personal healing, and it's a version of cultural resistance. That every single time we speak our truth, every single time we refuse to be erased, every time we create space for someone else to do the same, we are creating ripples. And so many of us here have talked over the months that we've been together inside this circle, that we've been told to be small, to be smaller, to be quieter, to be easier to swallow. And we know the truth is that our visibility is an act of liberation. And today, in this season that we're in the summer of self that we're celebrating, the we're in the L, right? The liberation. And so this conversation about being visible, visible physically and visible vocally, is an act of resistance. It's sacred resistance. And you know me and my love of studying women who have come before us, whether they are mythological or actual. There are a couple that popped up for me when I was doing this work, and one was Saraswati, who is in the Hindu tradition. She is the goddess of speech. She is the goddess of wisdom and learning and the flowing river of creativity. And she reminds us that our voice is a sacred current. And when I read that, a sacred current, I thought, how beautiful. Because last week, if you were not here, our guided meditation was about approaching that river, right? Coming to that river and putting our toes in it and feeling what the flow felt like. And so I love that today that we were able to weave in this idea of when we use our voice, it is a sacred current in that flow. And that when we speak our truth, we keep that river flowing for generations to come. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a giant log that will turn into a kingpin along the right way and turn our flow into a small little slice of that river that's raging, but it's still raging in that little tiny spot and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually we knock that kingpin out together. And so today, um, if her name sounds interesting to you, if you want to do some peeking around about her, check her out because she really is phenomenal. I'll put her name in the chat, and I'll also include this information in the recap. The second woman that I want to call attention to, most of us have heard of. She's in Greek mythology, and her name's Athena. She is the goddess of wisdom, of strategy, of skill, of powerful expression. The myth tells us that she was born from the head of her father Zeus, which is wild, that she was born fully grown and armored, and that she symbolizes this union of intellect and action. And intellect and action in a woman create balanced energy, right? So the intellect and action are mostly associated with that masculine energy. And so we have this woman who is a protector of cities, a guide to the heroes, and she reminds us that our voice, when paired with strategy and clarity, is magical. It can be a shield, it can be a spear, and it can help us in defending what matters the most to us while we're still leading the way forward. And I feel like so many of us tap into that archetype of an Athena. So take some time and learn, connect with the women that are in your world, or that are, again, are the women that I mentioned today in the Hindu or the Greek traditions, that because women who have come before us remind us that our voices not only sound, that it isn't only for singing lullabies to babies or calming a screaming toddler, that it isn't for just for teaching in Sunday school. It's for actually preaching from the pulpit, that it is a presence and energy and a truth that truly does shape the world. So I'd love for us to shift into talking about some stories. And I want you to be thinking about what is going on in your world, what's been stirring, what's been maybe even boiling over with what's been happening lately. And to get us started, I want to share a couple of women in history that have claimed their space and spoken when it mattered. Maya Angelou first comes to mind, right? So she taught us the power of transforming our personal pain into poetry. And she has moved nations with her words, right? She focused her pain into prose that truly have comforted, inspired, and ignited generations. Currently in our world, Reshma Saujani, she is urging women to take a visible leadership roles in tech and politics. And if you don't follow her on Instagram, please do, because yesterday she actually posted something that her entire community went aggro on. It was something around, I'm going to just paraphrase here, about like how women should care for men right now because they have been hurt just as much from the patriarchy. And the conversation underneath was so like righteous rage that I probably scrolled the most on that post that I have in weeks. So if you don't follow Reshma, I highly suggest it and go take a look at her past posts and this one, because even the best of us can sometimes be off the mark. And then another woman who's walking the planet right now that I think has inspired many of us is Gloria Steinem. And her using her public presence to help all of us reshape really the cultural narrative for decades. I When I was reading about her yesterday, I was thinking, I wonder what she's thinking right now. I wonder how she's feeling right now. And can she, does she feel disappointment? Does she feel empowered to get going again? Because I feel like she's somebody who taught us we don't have to wait for permission. She gave it her all for decades, and now here we are. We're kind of back where we started. And so how do we take what they've done and implement it today and to keep going? So if something is coming up for you, I'd love to invite us into conversation today. If you The first question that came to mind that might inspire somebody to raise their hand is, when have you felt most fully expressed in voice, truth, or presence? I'd love for us to start where we felt like we could be fully us. And what did that look like? Crickets.
No, I
Maybe we
can, I can, I
oh.
can take this. Hi everyone. It's been a long, long time. So,
Oh,
uh,
I so love seeing you. Hello, welcome, sister.
yeah, and Connie, girl, Sarah, you look like
Deontay!
you look like you're working out. So I'm so excited to see you. Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I think for me this is kind of almost like a paradox. So we got married January 3rd. On the 7th, we lost everything in the Palisades fire. And it's been a really, really, really rough ride since. And talk about fully expressing yourself. So when this happened, and you are in a space that like your brain always looks for things to compare things to. This is like when I had my heart broken. This is like when, September 11th happened. This is like when, I was in lawsuit. Nothing compares to this. Like your whole existence is wiped out in 24 hours. There's nothing left. So we came back. Normally you take a car, you go back to your house. We had no house to go back to. So we had to go to a friend's house. And in the aftermath of this, the theme of the spiritual journey we were at when this happened was interesting enough for me letting go. They should have probably told me it was the letting go extreme version uh, of this. But I was so exhausted, so shocked, so underwater. I had no choice but to fully express myself on how I felt. And Deborah, you've been reading my writings. And what came was, when the event is so intense that there is no covering up of a feeling or you know, I don't need any help. We're okay. Things are good. We'll make it through. None of that worked. We were in it. We were shocked. We didn't know what to do. We felt betrayed. We were angry. I mean, there was so much. There was no other way other than to fully express on how you feel because everything else
Mm.
just did not work. And so I think that in, in the comparison of what's going on sort of externally right now, we also have to, and I'm putting this into the teachings as this unfolds and how I'm now working in my work as a business consultant, where I really think about this from the perspective of the law of polarity. That's literally the only thought that made me survive.
Mm.
If it is this bad on one side, the law of polarity says it must exist on the other side. So if it is that bad, the other side must be amazing. But where is it?
Amen.
Where is it? And then we're looking at what's going on with this. Don't want to call leadership. I think that would be an insult to any leader that's ever walked the planet. If it's that bad and there's so much dismantling, then the other side of this must be creation, creation of the future. So I focus on founders of the future, creating a future we ourselves want to live in.
Mm.
Because if I give this any energy, it's going to be even worse, right? So I think that this full expression is a remembering of what I really feel and what we really feel and the allowance of these emotions. And at the same time, the spiritual principles and concepts and say, well, what does that actually mean? So can I interfere that the system that was built by white men that never worked for us is being now dismantled by the white men that say, oh, what a shitty system. I'm like, dude, I told you this 40 years ago. Now they go like, oh, who built it? And I'm like, You did."
Yeah.
So we cannot interfere with the dismantling of something that never worked. We must focus on the building and creation of our future. That's sort of this full expression that's coming through. That's my
Mm.
share. And I'm
I love that.
complete.
I love that. Well, and I love that as you've shared, and I put a link to your Substack so that everyone can read who's interested. I love that you so often woven, like, if this makes you feel uncomfortable, like, sit in it. Like, this isn't like you weren't like, oh, come, little children, let me make you feel comfortable about the fact that my life just burned down. You definitely, you were very raw and real. And I feel like we haven't had the opportunity to experience that as often as we've experienced the like scheduled vulnerability that social media has created. Like people sharing these big, like, oh, when I was a child, I had this thing happen to me where it's, it's run through Chat GPT 10 times and it's become some other version of what they actually experienced in their life to then sell a coaching program or whatever it is, right? Like actually hearing someone's story like for me, it's I slowed down. I'm like, oh, she's posted something again. Like I want to read what this is. And I think that there is a layer of connection that we miss out on when we don't do that with each other.
I think that this is a really important topic to talk about because this pushing away of what we are really feeling, right? And I mean, I know some of your stories. Uh, Nobody here walked in the park. This isn't nobody here is a princess that woke up one day and then somebody handed her a crown and we became the queen. This is not our story. But I think that we are called to step into a deeper layer of vulnerability because, for those of us who are, whatever, over 50, it's a legacy call. What are we sharing now? What are the shortcuts that we're sharing now? The real information that can help this next generation to not make the mistakes that we made, that we now know were mistakes, that the message was too controversial and caused too much friction, and help them to find a message that is not controversial and doesn't have so much friction so they can achieve what we could not achieve, because that drives me nuts. And that is an authentic expression of saying, I screwed up. We tried this, that didn't work. Let's sit down. That's why we have this forum. What can we do instead? But where each viewpoint, if it is presented not in this ChatGPT, it's not this, but it's that. But from this point where you go, holy shit, did she just say that? And some of my stuff is intense. I mean, like I had people tell me that they didn't want to like my posts because there was nothing to like about the post.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never even heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel that. I feel that. I think that's so powerful. Well, and I think sometimes it's easier for us to find those areas that we need to look at deeper when we start asking ourselves, where do I notice myself shrinking or silencing myself? And what's beneath that? You know, uh, I know that during the pandemic, when Molly and I were doing Spill the Tea, we kind of got on this we were like on a full-on holy mission to review every word that came out of our mouth. We're like, where did that come from? Where did that idea come from? Where did that saying come from? And it was, I feel like every third time we'd be like, oh my God, like we need to stop saying that because of the origin story or whatever it was, right? Because we've just been so conditioned on what to say, how to say it, where to say it, to whom to say it. And what I love about being in midlife, about being in our 50s and our 60s and our 40s for so many of us that we start to question those things. Perimenopause is like the beginning of the pause of all of the bullshit. And which I think is so amazing. So I'd love to know from you gals here, like where do you find yourself shrinking or silencing yourself, where you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't say that, or are you? Do you feel like you're kind of past that? I mean, it's so wild. Oh, what's Kelly saying? The system that is being dismantled depends on us externalizing our worthiness, because hold on, externalities are so unpredictable. We can never get comfortable with our, oh yeah. Amen to that, Kelly. That is so beautiful. I'd love to hear more about that. What is that work that you do with people, or is that work that you've worked through that's gotten you to that?
I've worked through that, but I taught marketing for many years and the consumer psychology. We would talk through this like with students too. So I guess technically I've worked through it and with it in kind of an unofficial capacity. But it really was just trying to get them, especially as they were moving out of college and for the first time weren't going to have a rubric to tell them like what is expected to be a successful fill in the blank, how dangerous it is to externalize the worthiness, because then the rubric becomes, what does my boss think about me, and what do my neighbors and my peers and my spouse think about me? And that if you can internalize that, then regardless of whether or not my house is burned down, or I'm at the top of my game, or I have just like this universe has decided to give me a fat lip and a good challenge, is that I can still be like creative and like community building and generous regardless of what the circumstance. Like I can internalize that worthiness, and then I'm a lot harder to fuck with. And I think that becomes easier in perimenopause because we've had so many changes and externalities. We're just like at this point we know it's not predictable, and so we do start to internalize it. But I think about how, and I maybe it's just part of like the maturation process that you just can't really grasp this when you're younger. But oh my god, like if I could have, or if we could move them, I don't know, then when we start to think about the built, like what we can create, we have the younger energized like creative people, but they also have internalized their worthiness, then we can create something really cool. But I don't know if you can really grasp it until you've been through the school of hard knocks. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right?
Yeah,
There is
exactly.
that layer of experience, and we do our best, I think at this stage, to find ways to let the next generation know, like here's what we experienced, here's where we were. And even in that, they have to want to hear that,
Right.
right? Um, and I don't know about any of you, but I mean, I've always been like in my teens and my 20s, I always looked to have sages. Like I had best friends that were like 20 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still had to learn those damn lessons myself. Like they would be like, "Oh, girl, that guy just they would wave the flag and say like, "This is my experience." And I would be like, "Oh, but that's not him." And then, 2 months later be like, "That's him."
Yeah, my best friend when I was 25 was 40. And at the time, I was like, all my girlfriends from high school and college are all getting married and having children. And she was the first one. It's like, no one is on the same timeline. And she's like, the first one to get married is going to be the first one to get divorced anyway. And like, she was being funny, but that turned out to be true. But looking, when I hit 40, I was like, oh, everything out of her mouth was gold. And I retained some of it, which was helpful. But if I could have retained all of it, whew, I would have been trouble.
But how do
Yeah.
we, to your point, so how do we then create the conversation where we don't fall back in the same pattern that we fell in? Because I thought when I was in my 20s and 30s and hot and sexy and got shit
Mm-hmm.
done, that it was these old women that, running around in purple flowy clothes and gray hair that looked like they hadn't touched a comb, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that it was them, that they were man-hating beasts and that they were all wrong and they didn't know how to do that until, my hair now looks like it hasn't seen a comb and I may have a purple thing here or there. So I was full of judgment at that
Mm-hmm.
time because I did not know, and I was trained to look at women as they get older as useless and as irrelevant in society. So, I did, and I would love to share that because when I was 55, I did actually look really into intensely from a branding perspective, where are the 60-year-old women that are relevant? And I couldn't find any. I found Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I found Maya Angelou. I found Oprah. And then I found a whole bunch of people that were not relevant. It's certainly not Hillary Clinton, certainly not so and so, certainly not so. I mean, anybody who had power was not a role model. And then I looked at the few that I could find, like, what are they doing that made them be relevant? And it was the connection with the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It was that Ruth Bader Ginsburg did not hang out with 90-year-old women. She hung out with 20-year-olds. And Maya Angelou gave readings in rooms that were filled with 30-year-olds. So there is a way for us as sages and warrior princesses and queens to position ourselves deliberately in such a way that this message can be perceived.
Yeah.
Being a growth architect, how do I formularize that? How do we jointly formularize that? So what we have to say is not being pushed off in that same judgment of, oh God, here she goes, Miss Opinionated, old feminist, doesn't know anything about men, doesn't know how shit works. Because it repeats over and over and over again. How do we shortcut that, Kelly?
I don't know. My girlfriend at 25 told me to read Women Who Run with the Wolves, and I was like, "Ugh, it's fine." I just started reading. I should have read it at 25. It would have
Yeah,
been
it's a good one.
groundbreaking if I'd read it when I was told to read it, and I didn't. I go to a hip hop fitness class. I'm obsessed with it, and it is Doechii and Megan and all, and I'm the oldest one in there by like 10 or 15 years, and I'm in there just tearing it up. And I do think that in this like indirect way, they listen to me because I'm there and I'm not hiding in the corner and not taking it over, but I think they see in me someone who's a little bit older but is still like with the culture. And I think that they listen to me a little bit more than they would have just because they see me like I don't know if I'm in their space. I don't know. I don't know why. It's just that one class.
Yeah.
But I'm like meeting them where they are rather than expecting them to come to me. But
And
that's
I don't
not intentional. It's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way that my world is curated, but I feel like the women who are in their 20s are saying the same things we are.
Hmm.
Like they realize the bullshit happening around and they're like, no way, we're not doing this. My women's circle this morning was sharing this article written by about an economist who literally did the data, worked the data, and divorced a man and married a woman. And because of the data and of all of the things around that, like there's conversations happening right now where women are making different choices. And I feel like it's less and less like a 20 something versus a 70 something. I feel like this is a time where we're starting to resonate at the same message, where we're like, fuck this. And so I think that if we can find, in each of our worlds, those younger women who are saying that, like we maybe don't need to do it to the masses right away. Maybe we just need to find one or two. Okay, there are three women, Molly, Lane, and Connie. Go, girls.
Um, uh, and I have to roll too because I have a meeting I'm late for. But my sister and I were talking about this yesterday because, it's a little overwhelming. We can all do our individual things. But I feel, and my sister and I were like, how do we connect those dots to each other so that we're all working on a singular something, even if we're doing it in our way, so that we actually do have that flag on the mountain. And I don't know what that flag on the mountain is today. I mean, I don't know what that is other than like letting a system break and then being ready to build when it's broken. I mean, like that's my like bones tell me that like let it burn down and then from the ash build something better. But you don't just start building from ash, right? Like you have a roadmap. So when that what you're rebuilding, I don't know. There's just something
Mhm.
in there that like I feel disempowered. I do feel small right now. Like I don't post on social media the way that I used to. When I travel, I scrub all of my shit and I've locked down my phone so that if somebody were to check my phone, that, and I mean, it's crazy to even think that we're in a position to even be silenced, but I definitely feel that and am taking precaution to when if I show up to a place that I'm not bringing my phone anymore. So it's very interesting where we're
Mm,
at. So I definitely those are the ways that I feel small. But my heart and my hope is unity so that we are actually so we know what we're rebuilding. And I feel
mm,
like that's where like this group can do that because we're from all of these different pockets. And it's like, how do we leverage what we have together to start to repaint that picture? So even in our own little worlds, we're able to have a bigger vision for each other in that. And I
mm.
think that's what's missing right now, is I feel like we're all just like it's burning. We're watching it, but we don't know what's next.
Yeah. And I would also like to add to that, that I feel like there are some of us here don't have to worry about what's being burnt down because we're safe, because we fit this narrative that they're saying. Like, if your life looks like this, if your skin is this shade, then you're okay. I worry about, like, I'm ready for it to burn down to the ground. I want to make sure that my loves, my beloveds, that you and my sister are safe while it's burning down. That's the piece where I feel like, how do we do that too? Like, I'm all for like holding the match, and then how do I get you in a flame retardant suit so that you're still here on the other side, right?
I'm
Like,
not in a I'm a gender trader or whatever it is.
oh Lord, I
I
haven't
know.
even read that term. That's horrible.
This is where
Yeah.
you're going, Molly.
What is that, Lane?
You're going to the colonies. That's where a gender trader would go in The
I
Handmaid.
know I can't breed anymore, so I'm gonna be like a Martha, Damn.
Maybe that's why we're all baking sourdoughs so we can become Marthas.
Yes, and not be in the field. Oh my God, that's hilarious, Lane. What's on your mind, girl?
I was just thinking about the age gap, and all it takes is an invitation, right? Like reaching out to different women. I shared, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, I was spending some time up north in pretty rural, up north Michigan, where like people drive like Razor tractors to the one grocery store. And it's, I would say, pretty conservative farmland for the most part. And then there's like, more liberal, maybe coastal homes. So it's a bit divided, but I was at the grocery store, which is also like the movie rental, which is also the liquor store, which is also the gas station. And there was this woman who is probably 50 years older than I am. And she was with her husband, and they looked like an odd pair. Like he probably had a Trump flag and she did not care at all, which was kind of hopeful. And we're standing in line, and I just turned to her and I said, "Hey, I really like your cowboy boots." Because I'm like, I can't not talk to people. That's just part of who I am. And she went off. She was like, "I'm a Swiftie and everybody in this town hates it, and da da da. And I'm here for women, and like girls' day out. Let's go to the bar and all this stuff." And I was like, all it took was an invitation to connect by saying, "Hey, I like your boots." And we had this awesome conversation. And I did see her a couple other times in town when I was up there. But I think that's all that it takes for that generational gap where like I would have never crossed paths with this woman or spoken to her or aligned with her. I barely got a word in when she started talking, but I think that's really all it takes. And I think that is such a common thing of like, Deborah, I think of when I met you was at a networking event, but then it turned into other things because there was an invitation. Hey, come join this. Hey, we're doing this. And I think every time that, I don't know about you guys, if I get like a paper invite in the mail, I'm like, oh my gosh, like someone thought of me, but then returning the favor to others, right? Of like, who else are you inviting to the circle? Who else are you having that conversation with? And I think sometimes you have to remind people of that, right? Like I've been to many conferences where they're like, okay, right now, like imagine there's an empty chair next to you. Who do you picture? Who are the top 10 people that you picture? And send them a text right now that says, hey, you should come join this thing. And I think people need reminders to do that if that's not in your normal day to day to be. And I get it. It's annoying to have to invite everybody everywhere. It's a lot of like administrative work, right? Of like, gosh, like my cell phone's ringing off the hook because now I've texted all these people and they want to talk about 70 different things, right? Like I get that portion of it too. But I think that's all that it really takes is a gentle reminder and a nudge that like this is the right space for you and we're doing the right thing regardless of what it is. It could be a book circle, it could be a girls' night out, it could be an organization like this. But that's truly all that it takes.
Mm.
I have to say, I think, Lane, I remember the very first conversation you and I had. I think it was at a Woman Up event. And I was so impressed by your um your actually openness to talk to somebody older, because I am older. I might be 50 years. I'm not, maybe not quite 50 years older than you, but close. The one thing that I can tell you is that, interestingly enough, there are four other nonprofits that I have talked to, and I am the youngest of the nonprofits that I am talking to. One woman, her name is Grandma Sparky, and she has given out a 500 million ribbons. That they're a little blue ribbon that says, "Who I am makes a difference," and our goal is to reach out to 1 billion. Another woman who is also in her early 80s, she started Neighborhood Watch in San Francisco in 1979. And she now has something called Keep Kids Safe. And there's three other ladies. And I'll never forget one time when I was doing Airbnb, I had this Asian family. It was two sisters and the mom. And the mom was from China and did not speak English. And as they were leaving, I took her hands and I said, "Please tell her how much I loved having you in my home." And the other sister's walking down the stairs, and she happened to hear her sister explain to her mom. And she says, "It's really too bad our countries aren't ran by grandmas." Now,
Yes.
I don't know how many of you here are grandmas, but just think of, maybe that's the growth from the ashes that we were talking about. I am totally in belief that if we can reach out to younger people, and Deborah, none of us believed, or if we had an older sister or we had an older aunt or somebody trying to tell us something, that we didn't buy it. We didn't buy it when we were in our 20s. And I don't know that there's ever actually a way to really express that, unless you are younger and you've gone through something where you get it now. But
Mhm.
I think there's a lot to be said with, I'm fascinated that I'm I'm the youngest of these five nonprofits that
Yeah,
are
it's
now
awesome.
collaborating with me. So I think the opportunity is really in, younger women realizing they don't have to be who everybody was before, number one. But number two, us older ladies, we're not old. We're not old. We are as young, and I know the last few weeks I have sounded very old because of what I've been going through, but I now that I'm there, I realize, I'm pretty doing pretty damn good for being 77 next month. And we can all look at these. I look at these ladies and I'm thinking, God, I want to grow up and be just like you. And I think that what we have here, this sisterhood we have here, can totally create a movement that will inspire others to be that anti-revolution, or that grandma presidents, or grandma dictators. How about grandma dictators? We can exchange cookie recipes.
I love it. I love you, Connie. Thank you so much. I love your wisdom. That's so good. Jennifer, I see your hand up, my darling. And
What?
then Annalise.
I almost forgot my hand was up. Oh, so many good things. I'm just like reminded it's like it's gonna take all of us, right? And it's like with this, it's like what kind of work, like if we're going to rebuild from the ashes, like what are we building, and like really what do we want the world to look like? And I was reminded of the story my mom tells of, like, all these starfish washed up on the shore, and so this person was completely overwhelmed by wanting to like save all the starfish, and it's like, well, you can't save all of them, but you'll make the world of difference to one. But it's like, but what if it was more than one person sending the starfish back into the ocean? So
Mm,
it's like, I think it's like there's not as we move, as we work on shifting the kind of world we want to live in, it's like moving out of the scarcity, right? There's scarcity that says I have to do it all, right? And it's like creating team, and that's really what, like, the centeredness and the villageness that's possible in the matriarchy, right? It's like shifting what the focus is. It's like, there's change and there's transformation. And I think what we're really after is transformation. And I'm reminded of get again of like when I can manage to like look up and see the light, the thing that gets me is every time we've been through these intense energies, we have notched it farther along for humanity than we have before. So things, it's like every time we had the American Revolution, we had the Civil War, it wasn't perfect, but we notched it for humanity a little bit more. And the reminder that we didn't have enough people in action. And it's a couple of really loud voices that are making a lot of noise that's not even like what the massive amount of people believe. And then if we can keep shining brightly and say like, hey, I'm a safe place, and then that like the more we can be ourselves, the more that gives courage for everyone else to be themselves. And that changes the world because they can say whatever they want to say, but if we're not
Yes.
execute it, then they're powerless. It's like the power of the people is always more powerful than the people in power.
Whoa. I
Right?
love that. Yes,
And
it's
I
so good.
like I need to
I remember talking when in my previous life when I used to actually train real estate agents, and this was like back in 2008. And if y'all remember what was happening in real estate in 2008, it was like burning down, right? Everybody was underwater. They were losing their houses because they had leveraged everything and they had boats and, plasma TVs. And it was just in a wild time. And I remember they would say, like, if the media would just stop the doom and gloom, I'm like, there are more of you than there are of the media. Right. And that we've abdicated our voice to the media and we're consistently like blaming the media. But if every single one of us was using our platforms to share what we're for versus what we're against, more people would feel safer to be for things versus against them.
Mhm.
And I feel like right now we're kind of in a weird spot because we're learning that are the platforms where we are using our voices, except for, of course, Blue Sky, at this point, like are managed by the oligarchy. And so we all have to actually band together even tighter and say, like, I posted, somebody come over here and like and comment on this. Like we have to do more work to get that expansion and get the amplification, but it's worth it if in the end what we're talking about here is that when we amplify it, more people feel safe to speak their truth. They feel more seen to be their authentic self because they know that it was really only 33% of the people that voted, not a landslide. And like the truth starts to come out, and there are more people who feel this way. It's exactly what you're saying, Jennifer, than don't. And that it's just the media focuses on those few, that tiny group of people who have that perspective. And so that is something that we can do. I love that so much.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I'm hearing too, it's like the reminder for us to be circular rather than hierarchical, and
Mm.
that's part of the thing of like being multi-generational with the wisdom we listen to. I got really lucky that my mom took me a lot of places and like I got to do things with her with the environment we were in. So I always like had lots of aunties, right? And then I was like the oldest kid, so then I was babysitting a lot of kids. So it was like, growing up with things interwoven. So it's like I have friends of all ages and it's like I feel like as we get older, we can either like go into the chains and like stiffen up and constrain ourselves and get beaten up, or it's like you get older and like you lose your fox, right? It's like they get to fly the nest because you've gotten too old for that shit.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I can just see it's like I have two women like in my life, and one has gotten like lost and constrained and bought into like the stories of how things are supposed to be, and the other one is like more and more free. So it's like it always comes down to perspective and what are we looking for?
Yeah, what is our choice?
Yeah, what are
Annalise,
we
is that
feeling
how
like
am I
we should
saying
do?
your name right, Annalise? Is that how
Yeah.
you say it?
Hey, thank
Welcome. This is your first time to the circle, yes?
you. It is. I just got
Welcome.
an invitation yesterday from Molly. Hi, Molly. I
Welcome.
I presented for her class last.
Ah,
Oh,
yay.
yeah. So that was really nice to get the invitation. So
Well,
I
you know
didn't.
I'm going to be asking again, so
Oh, good. Well, I'd love to. We certainly do the girls like the book?
I don't know because they, they're gone, so but
Oh,
yes, but she's
okay.
also author too, so that's the cool
Okay.
thing.
May I share that here? May I share my book?
Sure. Oh, from
So
chaos to calm.
from chaos to calm, leading change from the inside out. I wrote this 33 pages 9 years ago about the collapse that we're in now. And it was an intuitive download. A majority of it was written on walks. It was written via emails to myself, and it was written while I was sleeping. So I would wake up with entire paragraphs forming, and with the lights off, I'd keep a pad on my next to my bed. I'd lay it on my chest, and I would just write with my eyes closed, turn the page, and then write with my eyes closed. Try to make sense of it the next day. There's a lot that has been shared already on the call, and I had 2 Zoom calls at the same time. So I popped in to kind of get sense about what this might be about. And then I had to scoot to the other one and get sense about what that's going on. And I said, okay, what is more valuable for the use of my attention and my database of wisdom, and also the ecosystem, like the ecosystem of where I am in my own growth and where I perceive the world to be growing? What makes sense for me to plant seeds and to nurture and tend the seeds? And I decided to leave the other one to come join you all. The other one was specific to organizational development and specific to DEI. The frequency, the energy that I sensed between the 2 rooms was, one was very heavy, trying to work within the same systems of what they know. And then when I came back and I checked in with you all, what I hear here is curiosity and interpretation, possibly testing theories, testing self, trying to re-identify what path we're all on. And that self-exploration was a better use of my energy today. So I appreciate that invitation. And I have been seeing, of course, we've all been seeing the dismantling. And I hear, as I think it might have been Deborah who said, burn it down, let it all burn down. And the irony, like how many of us really enjoy like sitting around a fire pit? We enjoy like burning in control, but as our sister, is it Beatty? Do I pronounce it? Your name?
Beate.
Beate, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I have clients who have lost everything in California. I'm an integrative life and leadership coach, and I have clients that I've been keeping in touch with. So, and it's terrible when the dismantling comes for all the things. And I get it. I have had back to back to back losses in my own life. And I have a friend that continuously calls and says, it's coming, the end. We're going to really be dismantling. The people will wake up. The people will wake up. The people will wake up. When there's an economic draw, they will wake up. And I said, well, the reality is it's never a monocrop of belief. Nature doesn't work that way. We can't function in a monocrop. We have to have varied thoughts and understandings so that it can create new fractals in other areas. Like that is what survival is. So I've seen the cleansing of social media, and I have never partaken in adding a very strong opinion because my opinion is specific to future creation. But that's my gift. Not everybody has that gift, and I understand that. I understand that not everybody can speak from trying to see afterwards. It's really hard to do that. So in my world, I focus on what I can do and give gifts to support people who may not have that perception, to get them to better understand themselves. Because I really think, again, it's the title of my book, for us to lead change, we have to lead from the inside out. What you think about, you create.
Absolutely. That's so
yeah,
beautiful. What we focus on flourishes, right? And
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that this group of women definitely embraces the idea of it, as Beata says, is an inside job, and we're ready for that. What I would love to collect from everyone in the chat is I would love to invite each one of you to drop in a word that you're going to carry with you from today. Like, what is that feeling that you're going to take into the next week between now and when we get together next Thursday? Because I think that there are, if we can focus on some of these feelings that we want to carry out there that are going to help raise that vibration, where those opportunities are going to come our way. We know that we are magnets. And so what we're pulling in, let's be intentional about that. It might trigger you to pay more attention to a conversation with a friend. It might make you lean into a conversation at the leadership table at work, or maybe you'll say yes to something that is, pulling you into a community space that you haven't stepped into. Because I love what we're talking about here, which is finding the opportunities to put our hand back so that we can bring the generations behind us, with us, and also welcoming the sages that are in front of us, and becoming more of a circle, as opposed to it being that hierarchy that the patriarchy loves to do. I love these words: hope, persistence, hope twice, voice, creation. That's it. I love it. Power, enough, and creation. Oh my goodness. Such good words. And remember to carry our mantra and with us this week, right? My voice is my birthright. My presence is my power. My voice is my birthright. My presence is my power. And if you felt that feeling that rises when you start by whispering it softly and then speaking it clearly and then boldly shouting that out, do that for yourself over the next week. The words that we speak over ourselves are incredibly important, sisters. We are at the top of the hour plus a few. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my tippy toes to the top of my red head. Thank you for showing up for yourselves, for each other, and for those who are not ready yet or who didn't speak today. That's okay. Remember, now is the time. This is the place. We are the ones, and we all have our roles. We all have our lanes. And so remember that. Shake off any shame that you might have because you didn't say something today, and replace that with the mantra, right? Let's take one more collective breath in through our nose. Exhale. And it is in sacred sisterhood that we close our circle. I love you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Thank you, everyone. I love you so much. Bye
Thanks
for
for
now.
meeting. Bye.